Financing your education, tricks and tips. So why are we qualified to even tell you all of this stuff? So let me tell you a little story. I went abroad to study in 1990. I went to the US, I went to New York City. Back then, unlike today, so you guys are actually in a much better position than I was. You were only allowed to take $500 out of the country. So imagine your tuition fee, at least in the US at the time, was $15,000 to $18,000 a year, and I was only allowed to take $500. And I'm proof of the pudding that you can, with limited amount, as long as you persevere, can go out there, but you need to be very, very sharp about how you find, and we'll talk about a few of the tips and tricks. How do you find the funding? You're very passionate, you've done your SATs, you've got great essays, you've got very good recommendations, you've gone through the application, and now you've got admission as well. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine whose daughter got into Cornell, but did not get funding. And her annual expense is $50,000. He's like, oh, I can't, I'm not going to send her. I said, that's not the way to look at it. If her dream school was Cornell, in which it was, you have to think about finding your funding. And there's ways and means to do that. There's a lot of scholarships, but not a lot of foreign students get scholarships. So, but there are a lot of Indian foundations that are now funding scholarships, right? So Tatas do it, the Mahindras do it. There are certain schools where they have funding that they've done specifically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the discussion with two of our panelists here today. I've got Bennett on my left, on your right, facing us, and Zafeena Suresh from EducationUSA and the US Educational Foundation. And we'll talk about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that are there. And as I said, my own personal journey has been very rewarding because I studied abroad. In fact, I'm the founder of BrainGain magazine. And the reason I set it up was because when I went abroad, there was literally very limited information. The only place I knew where to go find it was at the US Educational Foundation, right? But that didn't give me enough to figure out how I would fund something, how would I, sort of once I got there, what are the things to expect? And there's a lot of that we offer online. And we are currently on BrainGain magazine's website. If you go into the financing section, there's a scholarships tab. We're trying to build the largest scholarships database for Indian students out there. So definitely go and look up the scholarships section, because there are a lot of small scholarships. You don't think you're going to go find one $20,000 or $50,000 scholarship. You may, if you did really, really well and you were extremely, extremely good at what you do, but the vast majority of us will not, I would never have gotten it, so I didn't even try. But there's a lot of $500, $1,000, $2,000 scholarships available at various levels, both at the bachelor's degree and the master's degree. So definitely do research, and the earlier you start on thinking about financing, do it in parallel with when you start to think about applying. Because you need to have that in place. Don't wait till my friend's daughter that, oh, I got into Cornell, now what do I do? She's 3 months away from going. It's not easy to get $50,000 in 3 months. You can, but you need to be prepared for this. So you all will actually be in a much stronger position since you came early, and you will have time to have thought through that. Having said that, let me we've Bennett and Zafeena in as well. So Zafeena, why don't you share a few of your thoughts, and then I'll get Bennett's comments.
Hi, everyone. And I see that most of you are undergraduate students, right? So I see different uniforms, and it's great to see you all here, so enthusiastic in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. Right? So I represent Education USA. That's within the United States India Educational Foundation. How many of you have heard of us? Education USA? How many of you have taken the SATs? Right? ACD? OK. So we are a test center. So those who have written the test center, women who chosen USIF as a test center would have come to our center but not realize that's Education USA. So we are an official Department of State funded organization which are here to disseminate information in US higher education. So if you choose to go for your undergraduate or graduate or PhD, we are here to help you and give you the authentic, accurate information, right? And I had given out some cards. I don't know whether you received it. It's a 5-step card. Yeah, I see that on the table. Could you just raise that up? Yeah, so you see, US Department of State has divided, the steps to higher education in the US into five steps. And the third one is finance your studies, right? So as Mr. Harjiv has said, it's very important for you to plan. You need to consider costs before you apply to. So you know SATs are expensive, you know advanced placement tests are expensive, ACT, you might take it multiple times, the subject test, so on and so forth. So you might have a plan, ahead of your application itself. While you're shortlisting schools, yes, you have to choose those schools which meet your budget. So make a budget. Making a plan, a budget is very, very important before you embark on this US higher education journey or any other country for that matter, right? So make your budget, plan well, and I think that's the only way forward. And I know, finance your studies is one of the most important topics when it comes to higher education abroad, because I know many parents, find it very difficult to, fully meet the costs of education outside India. So you really will have to think. It's not an impossible dream. It's definitely a realistic dream if you plan well. So planning is key strategy, right? So I would also, I would like you to add a point or two on
Bennett,
that. So on planning and strategy.
On the left, I think, for a real reason. So I'm going to try to give you the leftist perspective, which is an alternative to the official. But I'd like to put getting money in context. Now, I can do this because I'm also a graduate of Harvard Business School. I went to UCLA Theater Film Television School. I have a PhD in management from the Drucker School. My undergraduate was from UC San Diego in biochemistry. So I lived the liberal artist, but every bit of that education I paid for by myself. And so I take the perspective, there's only three kinds of money in the world. Old money, new money, and future money. Most of what people think about in terms of money is old money. It's money that somebody endowed that they then take the interest from and give scholarships from. It's money that somebody put in a bank that they lend to you, all right? That's old money. And your parents is also old money. It's older than you anyway. So, tap it if you can, but don't think of that as the only possible source. And so I think that you really need to think about alternatives. And so the alternatives I would offer you is new money and then future money. And new money, and I'm going to give you a very American perspective, right? So this is about go and earn it. Take the attitude, absolutely no one owes you anything. You do not deserve a scholarship. You do not deserve any financial funding. Now what do? Do you deserve a great life? Of course you do. So you've got to figure out how to put together that, what am I going to do in order to fund this? And I'll tell a few stories too.
You should, absolutely.
So I started paying for my education in 8th grade when I was taking a shop course. And at the beginning of the course, the teacher at the time required everybody to have one of these sharpened in order to do drafting. And if you didn't have one of these at the beginning, you got an F for the day. So I started picking up pencils off the ground at my school. And at the beginning of the class, Harjiv would say, "Ben, do you have a pencil?" 10 cents, I would say to Harjiv. We could do an exchange. It's transaction. So my stepfather found out about this and cut off my allowance, and I haven't had anybody paying for my education since. So I think that you've got to be creative about it, but you also have to be entrepreneurial. And this is a great skill to learn in the world. If you go around thinking somebody's going to give you a job after you graduate, again, you're wrong. They won't give you anything. The way you get anything is by solving somebody's problem. Now, what does that mean? Let's assume you're applying for a scholarship. And my problem as a scholarship giver is I have to meet a certain criteria. It's got to be a grade point, it's got to be an ethnicity, it's got to be a financial requirement of some kind. If you apply for a scholarship, try to solve the problem that the people issuing the scholarships are actually trying to solve. And it's the same thing in getting a job. You don't deserve a job to be given to you. You have to get a job by solving somebody's problem. And I say to students in the liberal arts, they say, what kind of job will I get? I said, what kind of job will you make? So after I graduated with a biochemistry degree, I graduated a quarter early, finishing in 3.5 years, basically 5 years worth of credits. No, I'm not an overachiever. I simply went to summer school and did all of organic chemistry one summer, all of some other requirements. So I'd been working in the theater. I started a theater while I was an undergraduate. We did actually get funding from the UC president for that. But I started going to the theater, I started working and doing stuff, and by the time that I finished my course, the theater hired me. It was like, okay, I couldn't get a job in a lab, nobody would give me a job, but I actually created a job because I'd been a producer and I helped the producer. So I'm a big fan of saying, find a problem, solve the problem. Now, if you can find a problem and solve a problem, you can get very rich in the world. You can fund your own education. So what you're looking for in terms of new money are problems people have. Now, a lot of people think of work study in terms of working. I think of working, but don't ask the university. There are hundreds of ways now to make money, doing online work, doing consulting work. We talked about the hour requirement, right? Yes. The US government's going to tell you can only work 20 hours. I don't ever work on an hourly basis. Do you want a project done? It'll cost you $500. How much time I take? Nobody's business. The government's interested in, did you get $500 and do we get part of it as tax? You bet. So pay your taxes. That's always a good idea, anywhere you are. But think of bunching things together. Think of things you could do for people. And I ask people, what are you good at? Oh, I'm not any good at anything. Well, what do you study? Well, I study. Are you any good at research? Can you read? Yeah, I can read. Okay. A lot of people don't like reading. So reading, actually, you know, yes. Internet. Okay, here's the thing. Anybody over 40 thinks every one of you is a computer genius. Why? Because we don't know anything about computers. We think you do. So it's like you're a computer consultant. You're an internet search person. You're a researcher. You can compile information. Go digging. It's there. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's current money. Now, new money is you don't want to be counterfeiting. That'd be illegal. That'd be a bad idea. Really, that is a bad idea, okay? Just everybody get that one? All right, so this is all about figuring out something you can do to earn some money in some way or the other. Future money is about thinking of money you could get or will get into the future. So I went to the Harvard Business School. I got a loan. It's probably the biggest loan I ever got. It's like, wow. Then I went to a company that basically promised to pay back your money in the future if you worked for them. So think about your possibilities of what you might do afterwards. Some people go, oh man, I have to pay it off right when I graduate, right? Well, you start getting the bills. Yeah. But I can tell you the bills are, well, depending on who you're borrowing from,
yes.
They're deferrable. And yet they'll work with you. And the whole idea of a lot of loans, whether they're your parents or your uncles or banks here or banks in the States or somebody who will underwrite or co-write a loan with you. You may not be able to get a loan, right, but your uncle in America might. That's a possibility, right? So you pay your uncle back. Pay your uncle back. Uncle Sam, Uncle Harjiv, Uncle Ben, whoever it might be, pay him back. But you basically are creating value in taking an education. So think of it in a future prospect. An easy way to think about it in financing is, probably most of you don't own a home. You might aspire to own a home. Very few of you will be able to own a home outright when you go and buy a home. So you'll be getting a loan based on future money. If you go to medical school, guaranteed you're going to be working on the expectation of future money. So think of these ideas as money that comes to you now, but what are the different sources you could use for future money? And it isn't always the official sources. Right. And that's the other side. Okay.
So let's get to the official sources first, and we'll come back to
enough from the leftists
again.
For the moment. You see where I'm coming from.
At least in the U.S. case, because I think that's important to hear, because there are restrictions as foreign students in the U.S. She'll give you the official perspective. I'll give you the unofficial perspective as a foreign student. So.
Yeah, I just want to add a point here. All of your international students, whether you are in the United States or you're in Singapore or in Russia or China, you're an international student. And each country that you go to have their own regulations for international students. And it's very, very important for you to stay within the student visa regulations. Whatever might be said unofficially, I mean, I've not heard that, but you have to stay within the regulations. And for me, I have to stay with what the US Department of State mandate is. So working, yes, it's good. You might get the minimum wages for, prescribed for the particular state. It could be from $18 to $15 an hour. You can work 20 hours, per week on an F1 student visa that you go for on campus, and 40 hours when you are not actually studying. And even when you go for a visa, first thing they ask you is, how are you going to pay for your education? And this is a very important question the visa officer asks you. And you will have to convince the officer you have sufficient funds to fund your education. And if you cannot show this, you will not get a visa to go. I mean, this is especially with regards to United States.
Particularly.
So it's a visa, interview-based, visa. So you will have to convince the officer, and very often questions might be asked pertaining to your father's profession, your mother's profession, total income, income tax returns. So you really need to convince this, that you have the funds. And it's very important for you to, again, plan. Choose universities which fit within your budget. Look at ways to reduce costs of education. I don't know how many of you have heard of advanced placement tests, right? Okay. So there are various ways in which you can cut costs. It could be, my husband went to Emory University for a public health program, and I was living with him at that point on the university campus. And I think a haircut at that point, I think 10 years back, cost $10. And one day this guy comes out with a really spiky haircut, and I asked, what happened to your hair? And he said, no, I tried to save $5, and I went to a haircutting saloon, where they were teaching haircutting, and I was horrified. I said, just to save $5, you went to a haircut with get spikes. Right. So, there's so many ways to cut your costs. So, it's, you need to find ways to do so. So you can supplement, your tuition costs. And I would always say university is the best source for scholarship and information.
Right. So one thing I'll add to that, I think it's important point you make, because before you even get to the US, you need to get through the visa process. Oftentimes, people are stumped on the fact that, oh, I need to show $50,000 or $100,000. This is India. We know the word jugaad much better than most people outside of this country. Do not let that scare you. There is no reason to be scared about this. Think of it as a challenge that will allow you to figure out a problem so you can move ahead in life, right? It's one of the things you need to do, and that's the first thing you'll run into. Trust me, if you can get through these hurdles to get there, you're already successful in comparison to a lot of other people in the world automatically, because you just left your country for a completely new destination. It doesn't matter whether you went to the US or Germany or France or Singapore. You are already experiencing something completely different in terms of learning. Do not let any challenge say, oh, I can't make that. See, that's not the attitude that will get you to the other side. So make sure that there are ways to do this. You don't have to, I never had the $100,000 for me to show it. But I found some uncle who had something, who could get a certificate from a CA that said, okay, I will support him. And I never took a penny from anybody, excepting my father, a little bit. But most of it was financed by my own efforts. Once I got to the US, I would teach Chinese students in my class English. And they would pay me $10 per hour to teach them English. And Taiwanese students. So it's a friendly barter transaction. They learned English and I got some money. So I got pocket money. And there's ways, and there's multiple ways to do that. And it is a lot easier when you're allowed the 20 hours and 40 hours. And 20 hours is also within campus, and I think after the first year. Then even as I think Bennett said, think of it as future money. Okay, how are you going to be able to fund your existing expense right now? And then over time, because you will be in the workforce, what are the skills you're going to get? How are you going to pay that off? It's all possible, because all of the things you're going to deal with when you get into college and postgraduate programs, you are doing these degrees because you want a higher salary at the end of it, right? So if you're expecting that salary, that will allow you to pay that off. Because the entire higher ed system in the US is funded on loans. Student loans is one of the biggest things, and there's a lot of availability of loans even in India today. They're a little more expensive than they are in the US, but if you can help somebody get you a co-signer in the US, it's cheaper to get a loan in the US, just the interest rates are so much lower. India is much higher. You'll pay 11 or 12% in today's market. I know you had a few more points in that, so.
No, I think we should probably, you gather we could probably tell stories here all day long, but
right.
Let's hear from you.
Exactly. Let's maybe open to questions.
No, I just had one point to raise. How many of you aspire to go to an Ivy League here? Just raise your hands. Okay, how many of you don't mind if it's not an Ivy League, but as long as you get funding? Liberal arts institutions?
That's it?
See, the reason I'm saying
it's okay,
is
as long as they're
money,
40, I think I can do good here. I was like, all we're looking for is 40.
The reason I'm asking this is because every person who walks into our office on a daily basis, things of nothing less than MIT. Then the second visit, think about Harvard, Columbia, Stanford. And the third visit, probably think of the Mount Holyoke and Brown. I mean, it just goes on like that. So the wise people who want scholarship might look for universities where they want international students, and they're willing to fund you to be sitting there, right? So I had University of Montana come in yesterday, and their total cost of education is just $31,000, including a living, because Montana is a cheaper place to stay in. Right? And they're willing to pay up to $50,000, I mean, 50% tuition waiver. That brings down the cost to around $20,000 a year. Compared to UCLA, where you might have to shell out $65,000 inclusive of the total cost of attendance. Yeah. So if the name is not very important, the destination is not very important, but you want quality education, you may want to look at other universities, which give quality education.
Or you could do what I did. I went to a very average private school called the New York Institute of Technology for my bachelor's program, right? Not competitive, but fantastic learning. The biggest thing for me was it was right in the heart of New York City in Manhattan. And for graduate school, I got a fully funded MBA program at NYIT because I did really well in my undergraduate program. So I did an MBA at NYIT. Then I went to Columbia for a second master's program, where again I found a lot of funding and financing. I still had to pay some, but I got an interest-free loan for 5 years, which Columbia basically paid off because once I got in, I had the first semester's money. Then I went to them. I said, look, I don't have any more money. And I still have like half a year to go, and I need you to finance the rest of it. So they agreed that, okay, continue your program, and we'll give you an interest-free way to pay it off. So again, learn to negotiate. See, in life you will run into a lot of problems, but you have to don't feel shy. Because I was a very shy person before I left. You can put me on a stage in front of 30,000 people right now, no problems. But that shyness, you have to overcome. Particularly, do not feel that because, oh, you're a foreign student, they will not understand. Go and be candid and ask for things. Because if you're not asking for things in life, you're not going to get it. And that's very, very, very important.